Mike, thanks for having me. The king has no mind. We heard the fable, the king has no clothing. Everybody knows he has a mental problem. This is a very serious problem. They're laughing at this president around the world. I am by no means the world's expert, but for 3 years, I was director of the Alzheimer's Research Institute, and I saw the disaster of this disease. And I will tell everyone listening right now, here is how it goes. The decline starts like this, and then it goes like that, and then it goes like that. He's very close to the next phase. He is in the second stage of, you can say Alzheimer's disease. The symptoms are, well, let the people decide. Forgetfulness, check that. Signs of confusion, the bunny shaking hands with the air, check that. Disorientation, check that. Next, rambling, let's check that. Repeating the same statements over and over, let's check that. Making up words of his own, let's check that. This is the second stage of Alzheimer's disease. So what am I saying? I'm saying that this is a very sad situation. And the world is laughing at this man while we're at war, using Ukraine as a proxy against Russia. This is a disaster. Who is putting this poor man up there every day? The answer is those who are afraid of what replaces him. And that would be the puppet of Nancy Pelosi, Kamala Harris. People don't know what to do in this country right now. Now we look at what the king is doing. The king is stumbling. The king is bumbling. The king is mumbling. The White House itself is crashing into itself. And yet the naked corruption that we see, the border being broken that we see, the spending on military equipment, which is out of control, the spending on illegal immigrants, which is out of control. And what can we do when we have a man who is mentally disabled like this? I say that, Mike, I have an answer. It's simple. And it doesn't apply only to Joe Biden. It should be for any leadership position. All of us know that there are biomarkers for diabetes, which would be glucose. It's a biomarker for diabetes. People get blood tests. If your blood glucose is high, the doctor says you're at risk for diabetes. You know, control your diet, exercise, etc. We know that cholesterol is a marker of one's risk of cardiovascular disease. If your LDLs or HDLs are off, the doctor says take anti-cholesterol meds or run a lot more, eat, less sugar. There are markers now for Alzheimer's disease. There are markers for this. There are tau proteins. There are amyloid plaques that appear. They can be tested now. And I believe Biden, for the sake of himself and the nation, must be tested for Alzheimer's disease, as well as all the other leadership over the age of 75. Nancy Pelosi, I don't think she's all there. So now we have a nation in disarray run by people who are mentally off, and people don't know what to do about it because waiting in the wings is someone who is worse than him. Biden is actually a centrist compared to Kamala Harris, I would say.
Dr. Savage, we have an escalating crisis in Ukraine, a massive border crisis in this country, an economy that's failing, and a loss of confidence in many of our institutions, CDC in particular, the U.S. military, just to name a few, the wokeification of the U.S. military. In this crucial moment for this country, is Joe Biden fit to take on all of these crises?
I think the answer is in the question. It's pretty obvious that he is obviously not in charge. We don't know who's running the country. Everyone says it's Obama 2.0. It's this one, it's that one, but they know it's not him. I mean, who sees a president shaking hands with the air and doesn't say it's time to remove him from office? For years we heard Trump should be removed under the 25th Amendment or something. Remember that? Because they didn't like Trump's policies. Well, it's not Biden's policies we're worried about so much. It's Biden's mental acuity that we are worried about. And look, I could lead right into the next one, which is this Disinformation Governance Board. Mike, who ever heard of such a thing in a free republic?
It's very dystopian. Very dystopian.
Well, okay, you want to show a picture of Nina Jankowicz, the would-be TikTok star that was just appointed?
Yeah, we showed it earlier. It's wild.
So you've had it on the show. So I have a little statue of her here that was done a few years ago by others. And the heads are those of conservatives who disagree with anything that Mayorkas, the weirdo who runs DHS, has to tell us. The border is being overrun by gangs. The country is being flooded with fentanyl. And we're not supposed to notice this thing. And anybody who notices it is suddenly charged with being an anti-government agent. This woman, no one knows who she is. Who is she? Where did Nina Jankowicz come from? A would-be TikTok star. So little is known about her. We know that her husband's name is Michael Stein. We don't know who her parents are. This is odd. She speaks Russian fluently. Isn't that interesting? Russia is our enemy now, and she is an expert on Russia. She comes from the Wilson Center, Michael, which is an extremist far-left wing think tank. Can you imagine if Trump had appointed someone from an extremist far-right think tank, what fools like Wolf Blitzer and Jake Tapper would be saying? So this is a would-be TikTok star in charge of truth about DHS. Anyone who says anything about illegal aliens or DHS, who is destroying this nation on a daily basis, is now an enemy of the state. This is totally crazy. The king has no mind. And my friends, I think this statue would have more intelligence right now and more consistency than Joe Biden.
Well, Dr. Savage, you mentioned Kamala Harris. You think that she's waiting in the wings. Well, the Washington Post says Pete Buttigieg, our Secretary of Transportation, is now second only to Joe Biden as the front runner for Democrats in 2024. What does that say about both Kamala Harris, and what does that say about the Democrat Party that Mayor Pete is the best they've got?
It says that they're in disarray and they're becoming increasingly desperate and increasingly fascistic and increasingly like the state described by Aldous Huxley in Brave New World. And so if you look at Brave New World all over again and you see things such as this, I'll read one quote. We all heard war is peace. Remember, freedom is slavery. We learned this in high school. I don't think Joe read it. I don't think Nina Jankowicz read it. Peter Buttigieg probably never read it. But this is the quote I wanted to have for you on your show today. Most men and women will grow up to love their servitude and will never dream of revolution. And it reminds us of Dostoevsky. And Aldous Huxley writes that in the end, people will lay their freedom at our feet and say to us, meaning the government, make us your slaves, but feed us. In this society and ours, people are comfortable handing over freedom to people in power in exchange for safety and stability. And in this exchange, people learn to love their servitude, choosing it over any dreams of revolution. Aldous Huxley was one of my absolute gods. I went to London when I was 18 years old to read his papers at the London Museum. He was one of the great geniuses of all time. And he warned us in Brave New World what the world would look like with an authoritarian government when it took over. And you don't have to be a genius or a Huxley expert to see what these people are. They are desperate. You know, when you see that Goebbels was the minister of propaganda under Adolf Hitler, and you see a senile president who doesn't even know who Nina Jankowicz is, I am sure, they produce a government office of disinformation in the Department of Homeland Security who has broken our borders wide open on the South. They're desperate. They're afraid. And if the Republicans did their job, they would impeach Mayorkas yesterday, and they would put troops on our borders tomorrow.
Dr. Michael Savage, appreciate you being with us tonight.
Well, remember, we'd have more stability with this man running the country.
Dr. Michael Savage, we appreciate your time.